Good day, everyone. Welcome to our live webinar, The Fundamentals of Document Digitization During the New Normal. In this session, we will talk about operational issues encountered by businesses and how they could be resolved by digitization. We'll also discuss best practices and tools, as well as how organizations can start their digitization roadmap. And now for our esteemed guests. We have Lars Jepsen, CEO and co-founder of Tech1 Global Group and Anadoc. Lars is an IT entrepreneur and guerrilla marketer with a wealth of experience in enterprise content management, digital transformation, workflow automation, and more. We are also joined by Wasantha Wirakune, COO and co-founder of Tech1 Global Group and Anadoc. Wasantha is a digital transformation guru specializing in people, process, and technology management with 30 years of experience under his belt. He has helped transform over 200 organizations in Asia Pacific. Rounding up our panel today, we have Aloysius Teo, Regional Product Specialist and Country Manager of PFU Asia Pacific. With almost a decade of experience, Aloysius is an expert in document imaging business. He is responsible for handling engineering team enablement, pre- and post-sales support, including solution integrations and proposals across Southeast Asia. Hello, gentlemen. How are you all doing today?
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
All right. So I'm sure we have a very informative 45 minutes ahead of us. So let's begin. All right. Now, Lars, when the pandemic started, how were organizations affected? In your opinion, what were the biggest challenges that they encountered with their daily business operations?
Well, we are almost on the date 1 year back that we all within the next 1 week, depending on which country we were in, kind of got confined to our homes, and this work from home became the normal for most organizations over the next couple of months, at least last year until midsummer. Most places, people could not even leave their house until they want to buy food or any items like that, grocery items, and not even able to go to work. Most organizations, I think, at that time felt that the vulnerable part of their operations was exposed during this time. Their business model was challenged and their operations models was challenged. So how do you get your goods, how do you get your services to the consumer, to your client, is one part of the challenge that organizations faced, and revising and renewing that, and maybe innovating to try to get products and get the business going. The next part was how business operate, and I think this is where we saw a huge challenge. I can just say, for example, in our organization, the only reason why people really needed to go to the office was they had to deal with something paper-based. Where most of our processes are digital, our communication is digital. Most organizations that are not in retail or in hospitality, but are in IT or other services, could operate from home. And many people in our organization, for example, everybody could operate from home, but we are still depending on paper-based processes. So for organizations that were in that situation, they quickly faced that challenge, and what are we going to do going forward to avoid being paralyzed long term of this situation? So I think that was the most obvious impact for businesses to start with. Banking processes, government procedures, all of that. A lot of that is paper-based in our region. When we talk about Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, still most countries are depending on paper process, and that got locked up because of the physical nature of that.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Lars. Now, with that said, how do you think digitization can further address these business operation challenges? Let's just delve deeper into that.
Yeah. So obviously, when you digitize your documents, they are available online. I mean, we have organizations who keep their information within their own IT system on premise, as we say, and we have organizations that put their information on cloud. But in either way, securely, you will be able to access your information even if you're not in the office. So digitizing documents will enable you to operate in a more agile format. You will be able to access your information for your business process. So, for example, an HR department can continue to operate without going to the office if you have the ability to access your information, the digitized information. Of course, during this time that nobody's going to the office, we saw that there was a kind of a pause on the implementation and execution of projects related to digitization and document management, because you cannot go to the office physically to scan, but at least whatever you had there, you could access if you had implemented earlier. So in the past few years, we have talked about this digital transformation, and the first pillar in digital transformation is to digitize your past to make sure that you are digitized in your organization. So organizations that had already taken that step were able to work throughout the pandemic with less impact on their operation and could focus more on developing a new business model. But organizations that were not able to do that, they spend more time just focusing on getting their operations up and running, operational issues that were not really driving business, but just fixing things that were not working. And then after that was done, could start to rethink, okay, how do our business model now change? So I think that was the real essence of the impact of that era.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that, Lars. Now, Aloysius, okay, when organizations get into digitizing, why is it important to use only the best tools and solutions? What is the reason behind that?
All right. So as we know, tools are actually essential to perform tasks, and this applies not only to digitization but also tasks that we perform daily. All right, example, cleaning the house, commuting to work, etc., etc. Okay, we know that the level of productivity and resource efficiency are heavily dependent on the quality and reliability of the tools. Even with a top-notch procedure plans or process in place, without the right tool, optimal level of productivity and efficiency could never be achieved. Okay, it's like having you perform a task with a hand tied behind your back, and this is one of the experiences that none of us ever want to experience. All right, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Aloysius, for that short but very concise answer. Now, we're interested to know, because so everybody knows you are a representative of Fujitsu, right? So we're interested to know, how is Fujitsu supporting organizations to overcome these digitization challenges?
Okay. So as a PFU, as a document scanner manufacturer, in ensuring that we provide the best possible support available to our valued client who are embarking on the road of digitization, we pay close attention not only to the needs and demands but also the challenges faced. All right, coming out with innovative ideas to overcome these hurdles and yet at the same time improve the overall performance of our product. Okay, which includes the software, the driver, and the hardware. Over the years, we have been introducing more features and functions, but when these are being implemented, okay, we are not targeting in just bring another selling point, but a key feature or function in ensuring that it improves the user experience and one that is not lacking of the capabilities on tackling challenges. These features, okay, are also targeted to complement with existing solutions available in the market. Example, in recent years, we have been implementing more features on the driver level instead of the capturing application itself. The reason to do so is to ensure that the key features and functionalities follows the client regardless of the platform or solution they are utilizing, without going through the hassle of getting enablement. Especially in an era where the evolution of digitization happens every day with new suites of solutions appearing in the market, imagine the how to say, imagine how would I put it? Imagine the hassle that everybody has to go through, and the amount of resource that could be conserved at such a point where the economy isn't very good. And that is how we actually overcome by about providing a good and reliable product for the customers. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Aloysius, for clarifying that. Now, since you're actually on quite a roll here, there's another thing that I would like to ask you, and I'm sure other people would also appreciate it. As a professional in the industry, what are your biggest recommendations for people and organizations when they're buying a scanner?
Okay. So I usually share these 5 key points to look out for when buying a scanners. Okay, every time I will do the same thing in recommend to my client. Now, the first point is the scanning speed. Now, usually it is a factor you really need to decide on. Okay, but you must understand, higher speed does not necessarily means you could do more. It simply means it takes shorter time for you to complete a task. We must grasp the importance and the weightage on this before we really look into our deciding on the speed. Next, we have to look on the duty cycle and the life cycle of the consumable and the machine. Okay, it really determines the durability of the product and also determine the overall cost of the maintenance. It is very similar to how frequent you send a car for maintenance, or the tires of the car, how frequent you need to change. This is one of the other factors. The third one is actually determine the key features which you really need. Okay, you must really be concise and precise on what you need and what is good to have. Okay, doesn't mean you have a product with all the features, it becomes relevant. Okay, you must understand that sometimes you do not need such features because at the end of the day it's redundant. Okay, but there are some other key features that you must look into. Example, Wi-Fi or non-Wi-Fi. I think it is a good to have, but conversion of scanned image into other files formats like Word, PDF, etc., it is a very important feature that you have to look to. So you have to do the weightage between these two, and before you do a final decision on the product you need. Okay. The fourth point is that the bundled software and features. Okay, especially on the driver level, this is one of the key things that when clients or customers purchase an imaging device, they have to really look into it, whether or not the specific software that is being bundled with the scanner is really efficient, good, or is it even quality or even productive. Okay, there are times when I see customers actually go for much cheap scanners, but they actually forgo the fact that the software itself or the driver itself doesn't pack a lot of features. So this is one of the key points that everybody have to look out for also. And the last and the final point is the DPI. Now, in the market nowadays, people think that the higher the DPI, it's better. Well, not completely wrong, but we have to be very, very logical on this. Having higher DPI doesn't mean it's better. Okay, high DPI, okay, yes, you enjoy clearer image, but there are things that you are also going to have challenges with. Example, when you scan in high DPI, you have much larger files, you have much slower scanning speed, which is not really practical for document archiving. All right, because when you scan a document itself, you are just going to ensure that the document is visible enough and it's usable. You are not going to say, I'm going to scan this particular document and then I'm going to replicate, I'm going to print tens of thousands, and you're not going to print it in super huge large format size like A2, A1, which I don't think so you need. So we must be practical on the DPI. Okay, for imaging wise, good quality image for with OCR capabilities, usually is within the 200 to 300 400 DPI range. in the norm, most of the customers we see are scanning in 300 dpi because it's more than sufficient for them to do their digitization, automation processes, and etc. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Aloysius. That is very informative. And I'm sure those are the things that our audience would be looking out for when they're picking out their scanner. Now, speaking of scanning, Wasantha, I mean, with your years of experience in the industry, and you have quite a reputation because you have experience scanning at least 1 billion documents per year, right? And with that comes a lot of wisdom. So what would you say are the best practices in digitizing and document management during this so-called new normal?
Thank you, Ara. Thank you so much. And let me just do a slight correction. Billion pages, not per year. The billion pages, we achieved billion pages last year. Our bureau has completed billion pages. A billion pages, if you stack it up, it's around 72 kilometers high. So probably it's a large amount of paper if you think of that size. And coming back to the best practices, I think Lars mentioned few things in the beginning, and he touched upon what we should do in terms of digitally transforming an organization and what things they should be following. So I will try to elaborate a little bit more on what he said, and also try to also just discuss a little kind of challenges that organizations have faced within the pandemic. So the first step is to understand 35,000 feet. What is this steps that you need to follow to digitalize an organization? So there are three major steps. One is called digitization. The second stage is called digitalization, and the third stage is called the digital transformation. So quickly to tell you what is digitization is to fix the history. If you have any artifacts or if you have any documents which have been old in the physical format, now if you wanted to share them efficiently and secure them efficiently and have a disaster recovery methodology, you need to digitize them. So that's the first step. So once you do that, of course, now you have a digital format documents, so you can share easily. You will be able to connect it with internal workflows, and also maybe with ERP and other solutions. So users or your employees can efficiently work. And at that point, the freedom comes where you will be able to unplug your employees from where you are, and they can work from anywhere. But doing that, still you have not achieved the ultimate digital transformation, because still you might be receiving from your customers invoices which are physical, checks physical, maybe many documents still on the snail mail, and probably you're also cutting invoices and sending them physical mail and physical invoices. So the boundary of your organization still might be remaining as a physical boundary. So the day your organization is being able to digitize your boundary, that is your ultimate freedom, where you will be able to achieve. So this is the three major steps, what is required to fully digitally transform. And the last one is you're not alone. Your organization needs to work in a kind of collaboration with the rest of the world or rest of the organization, where they should also feel the same. I think this last step was being accelerated and promoted by COVID as nothing before. The reason is everyone felt that they wanted to be able to work without being able to without having to be physically present. So that demand has been generated beyond in the past year. Now, answering the challenges in terms of the challenges of the COVID to the best practices. One of the biggest challenges that we have is we follow or we advise people to go for this 7-stage digital capturing process to make sure that whatever you captured has to be in future readable and reproducible, and should have should be in a format that is at least time elongated. That means it should not be obsolete. For example, if you remember VHS videos, they are already gone. No, 5.25 floppies, or 5.25 inch floppies, or 3.5 inch floppies. So there are things that in this technology, the mediums are getting actually obsolete, and also the content type. If you remember certain file types that we probably many of you are not on my age, but early file types of computers what we use don't exist anymore. So this technology obsolescence has to be addressed as a best practice. Organizations, to make sure that the sustainability of the business is being addressed. So that's one of the pillars that people should consider. Second thing is, in the pandemic, it has been very difficult to do large digitization projects. The reason is, like even in our own bureau, where we have converted over 1 billion pages over the last 10 years, we had to implement completely new techniques, such as the socially distanced digitization methodologies, where that means we have only half of the team is being present in a single area compared to the to previous density what we had, and we had to move all the data entry operations into working from home mode. So we were actually operating at around 25% of the capacity, even the human capacity is around 25% at office in this period. Whereas a lot of customers are challenged with not being able to go to their offices or to give us their documents to digitization. So in that sense, so large digitization projects had quite a impact. But what we suggested for most of them is to way forward. How do you move forward? There's only one way. That means to digitize today. That means you buy a small scanner, like what we have been Aloysius were talking about, that some desktop scanner. Individuals will be able to start digitizing whatever the documents that they are receiving now, and eventually, when things are opening up, like in especially like in Sri Lanka now, where I'm from, we have we have around opened most of the operations, and where we can go to offices. So we are resuming slowly the normal, but it is a new normal. Of course, around 25 to 30% only people will be sitting in offices, but we can essentially go back and do that digitization required to continue the business. So my advice in this one is, in the best practices, is please make sure when you are digitizing documents in the current period, you might be having challenges of acquiring the best equipments or the best services, but make sure you digitize them where you pay attention to the file sizes, file formats, and the longevity of those documents where you are storing. So that's what I can give Ara for this question.
Thank you very much, Vasantha. That's actually very detailed, and I'm sure our audience really learned a lot. And because you mentioned earlier in your answer, thinking about the future as well, right, as part of the digital transformation journey. Lars, let's say organizations start scanning their files. Let's say they observed, they followed, Vasantha's tips on ensuring that these files are scanned properly and efficiently for future use. But what comes next for them, for these organizations? Since we mentioned about the future, what do they do with their digitized files?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it obviously depends on the size of your organization and in what type of under what type of regulations your industry is. If you are a bank or government, you might have some requirements. If you are a private company, you might have other requirements. I think digitization is like a foundation for a building. It has to be done well, following all the concepts and principles that were discussed by Aloysius and Vasantha. And as it was mentioned in the start of Aloysius' discussion, having the right tools will make sure that this process happens in the right way. So once you have scanned that document, and I think we might have not even pointed out that we are talking here about document scanning. We're not talking about scanning, drawings or artwork or anything else, and scanning business document, digitizing business document that any organization have. When we say a document, we mean most of the time a couple of pages, an invoice, an employment agreement, a contract, transactions that you do every day. So depending on your department that you have and your use of those documents, finding those documents, retrieving these documents will be the requirement of the future. And depending on when you scan, do you scan before the process starts, or do you scan after the process is done? Say, for example, you issue or you receive an invoice from a supplier. You can start the process by scanning that invoice when you receive it, and then do the rest of the process digital. That means that you scan now the documents that you have, to come back to your questions, need to be available in the process, so need to be stored in the location where there's a connection between your financial system, your ERP solution, and your document archive. If the process is an archiving process where you basically move the scanning to after the process is finished, you receive an invoice, you do the matching, you do your data entry, and everything is finished, you archive your documents. Now the choice is you scan your documents and you can keep them on your server, on your PC if you're a small company. But of course, if you do that, you are risking the same kind of things that can happen to a paper document can happen to documents which are stored on a file server on a hard disk. They can be erased, they can be encrypted with ransomware, the building can burn down, you can have a air condition leaking on top of the PC or things like this. So we always suggest, if possible, to move the scanned images offsite. That means in a different facility. And our solution, Enadoc, which we have developed over all these years, Vasanta and myself, we have been in this industry since the early 80s. And over these years, best practices and experience, we have built a solution called Enadoc. That Enadoc solution is sitting on the cloud. So cloud means that the documents are secure. They are off your premise, and you can access those documents at any time using that software. You could also scan your documents and put them in OneDrive or Dropbox or things like this, which means now they are secure in the cloud as well. But the same challenges about accessing the information, deleting, putting documents in the wrong location, not being able to find documents again. So definitely the framework of a document management solution, which has many names. We call it an ECM, Enterprise Content Management, Document Management, Content Services product. So it can have many names, but at the end of the day, we talk about the images being connected to a database and being able to retrieve those images with all the security features that you can think of, meaning only the right people can access the documents at the right time. You might have certain document in HR, for example, that only few people in HR can access, but other people in the HR department could access a broader range of documents. Security settings and then access to the document and documents stored in the cloud is definitely the recommended solution today. We have clients asking, for example, about geographic redundancy. So I put my documents on this file server. What happens if there's an earthquake? So in this case, you need to have another location where the documents are also stored. So now these two locations need to be synchronized. Once you put the documents in the cloud, actually there is an automatic redundancy built into the solution. So you basically get away with all the standard complexity of building up an enterprise scale solution. And anybody, whether you're an enterprise or a small business user, now have access to the same facilities using the cloud. So we use the Microsoft Cloud, which is the most secure, the most compliant solution for storing data anywhere. And all documents are encrypted. We cannot access the document. Our developers cannot access the document. Only you can access the document through our solution. That's one of the solutions out there. There are many others, from our solution to Microsoft SharePoint, IBM, OpenText, a lot of big solutions out there to basically manage your stored documents. And whether you want it in the process or archiving would determine how you basically build your solution. Ara.
All right, thank you very much for that answer, Lars. Now, I just want to quickly go back to Wasanta. Now, say an organization, because you've given them a lot of really good answers today, and perhaps they've come to realize that, hey, we probably do need to start digitizing our files. Now, from a practical as well as a technical point of view, how can organizations start with their digitization roadmap?
Thank you, Ara. I would like to touch upon, what Lars mentioned, and I wanted to continue that same discussion. So I also would like to recorrect of what you asked, maybe for my own benefit, probably. So rather than saying digitization, I wanted to talk about digitalization. The reason is that digitization is a thing that we need to get done. But there are some challenges on digitizing history at this moment, but we need to work on that using the advice what I gave before. Digitalization is to make sure that everything that is being digitalized or digitized to use for the business benefit of a situation like where we are in today. Current COVID situation has unplugged all of us from our office space, and we are staying at home. So we would like to support our business processes and using the tools what is available. So I would suggest that people should look at if you manage to digitize, some of the document, as Lars said, invoices or something at the point, then to find out what are the processes that will follow. So Lars mentioned, either you digitize in the beginning or digitize at the end. But I would suggest to anyone who is watching this to move on to digitize at the beginning, given the current context. So it will help your organization to easily automate the processes where you don't have to have people in one location. Because if you digitize after, until the digitization is complete, you need to physically have access to those documents. So that is that is an important part. So we also have been working on, we have seen this need, and actually before the pandemic, we have been also seeing this. So we have a product that we developed called Flodo, which is fully connected to Enodoc on the back end, helps organizations to bring the digitization component to the front. Digitalization component to the front of that organization processes. So where at the back end, it securely archives the documents for future references. So I think that is one of the key advices that I can give for who wants to look at digitalization as a first step. The second thing is look at openness. In the history in document management, Lars and myself, as he mentioned, around over 30 years, we have seen there are a lot of proprietary thinking has been there. But what is evolving now is open standard. A lot of open standards are there. Now the digital file standards are becoming open and accepted. In the same way, there are the new technologies are open API based, application programming interface. If you have heard about this word, this is that connectivity. You will be able to easily connect with a standard understanding about this technology via those application programming interfaces. So look for those features in the products that you are looking for planning to implement within the organization. So these are few ideas that I can give. Of course, I can talk about this for days, Ara, but I don't know whether time permits. If you have time, please come back to me. I can tell more.
Right. Well, that is already very insightful, Wasanta. Thank you very much. And actually, speaking of, talking more about digital transformation and digitization roadmap, we actually have some questions coming in from the audience, and I think this would be the perfect time to address them. Okay, so let's just answer this question first. This actually came in from YouTube. how do you find the right document scanning and document management partner? So I think I would like to ask Aloysius about this first, since there is a scanning component to this. Aloysius?
Okay, so for the right document scanners wise, basically you have to look into the 5 major key points I shared earlier on. But to summarize everything is that you really have to prioritize what is your needs and what is the requirement. Then from there, you can actually decide on what is the machines that you need. Okay, so actually digitizing itself, to summarize the whole thing up, is that you really need to look into a few key factors. And the 5 key points, you have to look into it first. After that, you have to look into the existing process or current procedures that your company is running now. Then you have to really consider whether or not, when you ask, you are going to, do you have a backlog to clear? And moving forward, do you have more documents to scan? And from there, you balance out the, the key requirements, like for example, your daily volume, your daily expectation scanning volumes, and then how your maintenance costs, etc. From these factors, then you can actually pick the correct machine. Like why is this important is that because this will actually help you evaluate and help you maintain your cost at the most optimum level. You, at times, if you don't look into this factor, you may actually think that you need a very high end machine, but in actual facts, after you purchase the very high end machine, you find that, oh, actually I need not. And then from there, moving forward, you really impact your confidence on planning on digitization. So one of the key advice I can actually give you first is to evaluate your current procedure, your current situation. Question yourself whether or not you have, like, ongoing, what is the estimated volume? Is the volume growing? Okay, if you can't really pick a number, then maybe you can consider like a 10% growth on a year-to-year basis on the number of documents you're going to scan. And then from there, calculate a bulk figure. And then at the same time, reconsider what is the amount of documents you have as backlog you need to scan. And then from there, set a timeline that you would like to have this whole portion of it to be completed. Then from there, you decide the correct machines. All right, that's all from me on this part. Yeah, for the solution part, I think I will pass it back to Lars.
Yeah, actually, yes. Thank you very much for that, Aloysius. Now, I actually want to ask Wasanta about this. So, since Aloysius addressed the document scanning part, what about the document management? What is it, or as the question was, how do you find the right document management partner?
All right. So we have, as I mentioned, that we have digitized over 1 billion pages over the last 10 years. So we have quite a bit of experience in terms of understanding the process. So as Aloysius mentioned, the first thing is get a good scanner to get a good image quality. So once you have good image quality, it is actually not over. The thing is that this is a piece of paper or a business document that requires to be retrieved at a latter part of the business process, business need. Now, to retrieve, maybe this retrieval will happen after 5 years, 10 years, maybe 3 years, or maybe in a month. We have no idea how when we need. So you need to find someone who will be able to put this document in the right perspective. That means put into a system where it can be found later. Now your partner should have the capacity to understand how you should how the document should be indexed, or how the document should be mapped, and how you maintain the quality of the document, or the indexes, or the tags what you are tagging. What is the quality of that to be maintained? So the partner should have experience in terms of understanding the business in the business of document capture. So look for some certifications for this partner, whether they have a certification like certified document imaging architect, or there are various other qualifications in the market that tells how a document archiving should be done. Now, that is one of the key criteria. The second thing is the experience, because the experience is handling, as Aloysius said, so the volumes are important, turnaround times are important, and but documents don't, always the same type of documents don't come in the same way. Sometimes documents have been crumbled and been stapled. So each project is a new experience. So you need to look at how experienced your partner to handle the job. And I think those are the important things that you should look at: the experience, with the certification, and how much documents that they have converted the experience, so on and so forth. I think Lars also can add one or two words on this one, because he has equally around 20 to 30 to 35 years of experience and been doing this. That's all from me, Ara.
All right, thank you very much, Osanta. And Lars, since you have the same X number of years of experience as Osanta mentioned.
Actually, Vasanta used to be my student first, so that's how we met many years ago. So I think what's important here is that when you're looking for a partner in technology, look for somebody who has the right competencies and experience. And I think Vasanta already elaborated on that. What are the customer references? Does this company have enough clients to show that they have solved this kind of problem for many other type of organizations? And even more important, if they have references within your specific line of business. Now, anybody, I say anybody because it is almost like that, anybody can start to be representing a brand like a scanner brand, or get the agency for some software, but that doesn't mean that the local entity has that experience. And we pride ourselves in our company, for example, that we have many people who are, as a percentage, we do most of our profitability. It comes from ECM. Most of our gross profit on a basis of a yearly basis come from selling ECM solutions. So if you start to ask those kind of questions that you would normally ask from, let's say, an architect or a builder that's going to build your house, did you build any houses like this before? Do you have any references? Can I see a house that you have built? So just go through the same exercise. And also, I think there used to be a time that organizations choose one IT company to solve end-to-end all the IT requirements, from the cabling to the servers to the PCs. I think that time is not there anymore. Now you select companies that are specialized in certain areas. So if you are going to have an ECM project, a digitization project, select somebody who has that experience, because that will make sure that your project is successful and you get that return on investment. And obviously, like we discussed before, if you start, and this is our recommendation, you start the scanning process as early as possible, it becomes business critical. If those images and that data doesn't flow in your organization, then the organization stops. So it's important that the partner that is chosen for that has that kind of experience and references. Ara.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Lars. Now we actually have time for one more question from the audience. Okay. Is it better to outsource scanning of an organization's documents? So I think this is more of a comparison between doing the scanning in-house and actually hiring someone to do it for you. So Lars, do you want to take on this question first?
Actually, we have data on that. It's since our organization, we provide hardware, we sell scanners, we sell document management solution, and we also sell the services to scan the documents. So we, when we look at the user pattern of the clients who buy our solution, they typically buy the solution with some kind of costing based on how many documents they add. So we can see how many documents they add. The organizations that scan themselves, they have like a staircase. That means they scan something, and then for a period nothing happens, and then they scan again, and then they scan again, and then they scan again. Meaning that in between, there's a pile of documents somewhere. And when you need a document, you don't know, is that document in the pile or is it in the system? So first you look in the system, you couldn't find it in the system, so it's probably in the pile. So you have this kind of challenge. Organizations that use an outsourced scanning a company, they have typically almost a linear process. They scan a certain amount. All the new documents get scanned every single day. And we have seen only last year the organizations that have these services from our company have only stopped scanning maybe for the period of the most severe lockdown, when there was nobody going to the office for 2 weeks or 1 month. Those organizations did not scan anything, but the rest of the year they are scanning on a continuous basis. The other thing is that if you want to scan in-house, you have to allocate people to do it. So let's say, for example, you have an HR department of 5-6 people today. Tomorrow you want to scan documents. That becomes additional work that has to be done by that organization. So better that you outsource, otherwise it's not going to happen. Implementation is going to be slow. That's based on our experience. So my recommendation is that you look very hard on that, to outsource the document scanning. And it also gives you a bit of a compliance and security aspect, because now it's a service level agreement of a third party. There's nobody who is inside your organization seeing the documents that are being scanned of other departments. It is it's like basically you give your money to the bank, and the bank doesn't go and tell everybody how much money you have in your account. Scanning inside can be a compliance issue as well. By the way, the other thing that we have done as a company, not as a document management company, but as an organization, is we have tied our ISO certification with document scanning and availability of documents. So HR and finance documents have to be stored digitally in our document management system. Otherwise, the standards set up in ISO for our company are not completed. So you kind of enforce. You become your own policeman, because you enforce the rules through the ISO certification. So you tie in compliance and ISO certification with scanning. So even if you're doing the scanning yourself, there's more pressure to get it done. So that's my recommendation on that, Ara.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Lars. That is very informative. And I hope that answered all your questions. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have left. But if you have other questions that we have yet to answer, feel free to drop them in the comment section or send them to aliana@techoneglobal.com, and we'll surely get to them. Now, before we go, if you'd like to get your organization started on its digital transformation journey, book a free one-to-one consultation with us, and we'll help you with your digitization roadmap. And that's it. Thank you very much, Aloysius. Thank you very much, Vasanta. And thank you very much, Lars, for
And
joining
thank you, Ara.
Thank you, thank you. And thank you, of course, to our wonderful audience for tuning in as well. We hope you enjoyed this session, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. Keep safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.